"Just here for the free food," the alien girl said when the CEO caught her at the banquet. The grand hall of the interstellar banquet shimmered with lights that danced across walls of polished crystal. Hundreds of dignitaries from countless planets had gathered, each bringing with them pieces of their cultures, technology, and art. From hovering sculptures that shifted shapes in the air to tables filled with foods that glowed and sparkled in colors no human eye had ever seen before, the banquet was a celebration of the galaxy itself. And at the center of it all stood CEO Alara Venn, a tall human with sharp eyes, her presence commanding yet welcoming. She was known across the stars for her ability to unite humans and aliens through trade, culture, and diplomacy. Tonight, she had outdone herself. Guests laughed, clinked glasses filled with shimmering liquids, and exchanged stories. Robotic waiters glided silently among the crowd, offering platters of delicacies. The scent of exotic spices filled the air, mingling with the crisp aroma of freshly baked goods. It was a night of unity, of sharing, and of marveling at how different species could coexist in harmony. Yet, amid all this elegance, a small figure darted quietly along the edges of the room. She was no taller than a human child, with large, curious eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the ambient light. Her skin was a soft shade of violet, and her hair shimmered like liquid silver, falling in loose strands down her back. She wore simple clothes, rough, patched, but neat, and she moved with an almost childlike grace, careful not to draw attention, though her presence was impossible to ignore once noticed. This was Lyra, an alien girl from the distant planet Zarathis. She had come not for politics or diplomacy, not for fame or influence, but for something far simpler: the food. Stories of the legendary galactic banquets had reached her home world, carried by travelers and traders. And when she had finally saved enough for the journey, she had decided she could not miss this chance. Her eyes lit up as she peeked around a corner and saw a table laden with glowing fruits that hummed softly, each orb suspended just above the surface. The colors were mesmerizing: deep blues, vibrant pinks, and greens that shimmered like liquid emerald. Lyra's stomach rumbled, and she felt a thrill of excitement. She had seen food from other worlds, but nothing like this. Careful to avoid the gaze of the hovering servers, she crept forward. Her small hands reached for a delicate, glowing fruit shaped like a star. She held it up, marveling at the way it pulsed gently in her grip, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Just as she was about to take a bite, a sudden shadow fell across her. "Excuse me," a firm voice said. Lyra froze. She looked up, and there she was, CEO Alara Venn, standing tall and elegant, arms crossed, her gaze sharp but not unkind. The room seemed to hush, though no one had noticed the small intruder yet. Lyra's eyes widened. She had been caught, and yet there was something about the woman in front of her that made her hesitate. Most adults she had encountered were stern, intimidating, or dismissive. But Alara's face held a curiosity, almost a quiet amusement, as if she were studying a rare specimen rather than a thief. I was just," Lyra began, then paused. She didn't know the words to explain herself. How could she? She had sneaked in, yes, but only for the food. She wanted it, yes, but she didn't mean any harm. Alara tilted her head slightly, her sharp eyes softening. "You came all the way here for the food?" she asked, her voice calm, almost gentle. Lyra hesitated, and then with a candid honesty that startled even her, she said, "Yes. I'm just here for the free food." The words hung in the air. For a moment, no one in the hall moved. The dignitaries, the ambassadors, the robots, all seemed to pause as if waiting for a reaction. Some stifled chuckles, some raised eyebrows, but no one laughed rudely. Alara Venn stared at the little girl for a moment longer, and then unexpectedly she smiled. A real, warm smile that lit up her face and made the room feel a little brighter. "You're honest," she said simply. "That's rare." Lyra blinked. Honest. She had only told the truth. But she had expected scolding, or at least for someone to tell her to leave. Instead, this human, this CEO, smiled. She felt a small warmth bloom in her chest. Alara gestured to a chair at a nearby table. "Come, sit, taste properly. There's plenty for everyone." Lyra's mouth fell open. "I can." "Yes," Alara said, her tone firm but kind. "I think it's better if you try things properly than sneak around." Nervously, Lyra approached the table. The guests nearby had begun to notice her now, murmuring among themselves. She felt a flush of embarrassment, but also a surge of excitement. Here she was, an alien from a distant planet, sitting at a table with humans and aliens of every imaginable kind. and no one was angry at her. As she sat down, Alara leaned slightly closer and asked softly, "Where are you from?" "Zarathis," Lyra replied. "It's far, not many come from there." "I can see that," Alara said with a nod. "And you've come a long way for dinner," Lyra shrugged. "I wanted to see and taste." "Everyone talks about this banquet. I couldn't miss it." Alara chuckled softly. "Well, you've certainly made it memorable." A hovering tray of delicacies floated down in front of Lyra, carrying tiny portions of foods she had never seen before. There were sparkling pastries that changed flavor with every bite, tiny spheres that melted into a rainbow of tastes, and glowing fruits that fizzed and popped on the tongue. Lyra's eyes widened in delight. As she began to eat, she felt a strange sense of belonging. Here, in this grand hall filled with beings from all corners of the galaxy, she was not judged for being different. She was simply accepted. And for Lyra, that feeling was more thrilling than any dessert could ever be. Meanwhile, Alara observed her from a distance, her mind turning over possibilities. The girl was small, yes, and seemingly naive, but there was something remarkable in her honesty and curiosity. Traits like that were rare, and in the right environment they could spark ideas, innovation, and connection. The banquet continued around them, a symphony of voices, laughter, and clinking glasses. But at this small table, a connection was forming. Between the CEO and the small alien girl, there was a quiet understanding. Sometimes the simplest truths, like a desire for food, could lead to the most unexpected discoveries. By the end of the evening, Lyra had tried more dishes than she could count. She had laughed at the strange textures, marveled at the sparkling colors, and even impressed some guests by describing flavors in ways they had never considered. Alara watched, realizing that this little girl might be more than just a curious guest. She might be a bridge between worlds if only she was given a chance. As the banquet wound down, Lyra looked around at the shimmering hall, the glowing tables, and the many beings she had met. She felt a thrill of wonder and excitement. She had come for free food, yes, but she was leaving with something much more important. The beginning of a story, a journey she had never imagined. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew this was only the start. The banquet hall had quieted slightly after the initial excitement caused by Lyra's bold admission. Guests returned to their conversations, though many still stole curious glances at the small alien girl sitting at the table with CEO Alara Venn. Lyra, meanwhile, was feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. She had never been so close to so many beings from different worlds. Every plate in front of her was an invitation to explore something new. Every bite was a tiny adventure. Alara watched Lyra carefully, noting how the girl approached each dish. She didn't grab greedily or eat without thought. Instead, she observed, sniffed, and sampled with careful curiosity. It was clear that this child, or at least someone who looked like a child to human eyes, had a genuine interest in experiencing new things. And in that interest, Alara saw a spark of something rare, curiosity combined with honesty. "Tell me," Alara said softly, leaning forward, "what is it about this banquet that drew you here? You said it was the food, yes, but there must be more." Lyra's small violet eyes met hers. She paused, unsure how much to reveal. In her culture, young aliens often traveled with caution and modesty, especially when encountering beings from other worlds. But the warmth in Alara's gaze encouraged her to speak plainly. I heard stories," Lyra said slowly. "Stories of food that glows, drinks that sing, and people from many planets coming together. On Zarathis, food is scarce. We eat what we can grow or trade, and sometimes it isn't enough. So I thought, maybe here I could see, I could taste, maybe even belong for a little while." Alara felt a pang of empathy. She had met countless beings from worlds facing hardships, but hearing it in such simple, honest words always carried weight. Lyra wasn't complaining or demanding. She was just stating the truth. "You are brave to come all this way," Alara said, her voice warm. "Most adults wouldn't dare. They would make excuses, hire guides, or send messages. You just came." Lyra shrugged, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I didn't know it would be so big," she admitted. "I thought maybe a small hall, a few people, not hundreds of beings." Alara chuckled softly. "Big is one way to put it, but it's better to be here than not. And honesty, that is a quality we humans value greatly. You have it in abundance." The words made Lyra sit a little taller. No one had ever complimented her honesty before. On Zarathis, children were expected to follow rules strictly and never draw attention. But here, speaking the simple truth had opened doors instead of closing them. As Lyra continued to taste the dishes, Alara asked, "Do you have family on Zarathas?" "Yes," Lyra said, nodding. "My parents, they work in the harvest fields. We grow what we can. I wanted to see the galaxy and try new flavors. They would not come." She paused. "They said go, but don't get in trouble." Alara smiled gently. "You honor them by being cautious, yet curious. That is the balance most adults struggle to achieve." Nearby, other guests had begun to notice the interaction. Some whispered among themselves, fascinated that the CEO was speaking directly to a small, seemingly unimportant visitor. Others admired Lyra's courage. There was something refreshing about seeing a guest speak so plainly, without pretense or fear. A hovering platter of sparkling pastries floated closer. Lyra's eyes lit up. She picked one up delicately and examined it. "On Zarathas, pastries are flat, plain, without flavor layers," she said thoughtfully. This is like tasting the colors of the sky." Alara laughed, delighted. "You have a poet's mind for flavors, it seems. You notice more than just taste, you notice experience." Lyra blushed faintly. "I like noticing things," she admitted. "Even small things," Alara nodded. "Small things are often the most important. The way you speak, the way you notice, that can change the way people see the world." The small alien girl's eyes widened. Could her simple honesty truly have value here, in a hall filled with dignitaries, inventors, and leaders from across the galaxy? It seemed impossible, yet Alara's words made it feel real. Just then, a group of alien diplomats from the planet Tyrenthia approached their table. They were tall, with translucent skin that shifted colors depending on their emotions. One of them, a male named Kale, tilted his head in curiosity at Lyra. "Who is this?" Kale asked politely, his voice musical. "A guest, or perhaps part of the event?" "She is a guest," Alara said, smiling. "A very honest one. In fact, she admitted to being here for the food." Kale's eyes widened slightly. "For the food," he repeated. "That is unusual but refreshing. Most beings attend such events for prestige or trade. Honesty is rare." Lyra nodded shyly. I like food," she said simply, "and I like seeing new things. That is why I am here." The Tyranthian diplomats exchanged amused looks, clearly charmed by her frankness. Kale reached out a small, glowing fruit and offered it to her. "Then try this. It is from our home world. Its taste changes depending on how you feel." Lyra's eyes sparkled with curiosity. She took it carefully and bit into it. Immediately, the fruit shimmered in her hand, and the taste shifted through sweet, tart, and a faintly spicy note. She gasped softly. It tastes like happiness and curiosity," she said, marveling at the sensation. "I never imagined food could do this." Alara smiled again, watching as the simple act of sharing food bridged worlds. A child, honest and curious, had become the center of attention, not through wealth or power, but through authenticity. "You know," Alara said softly, "sometimes the simplest desires, like enjoying a meal, remind us why we do what we do, to connect, to share, to understand one another. You have reminded me of that tonight." Lyra blinked in surprise. She had only wanted to eat the food, not teach anyone anything. Yet her honesty and curiosity were already making a difference. The evening continued, and Lyra moved through plates of food, tasting, observing, and commenting in her gentle, honest way. Guests began to approach her, asking about her home planet, her favorite flavors, and how she had traveled so far alone. Lyra answered each question with the same simple honesty, never exaggerating, never pretending. In the corner, Alara quietly made a note to herself. There was potential here, not just for food exploration, but for something bigger. Lyra's straightforward nature, combined with her natural curiosity, could inspire ideas, partnerships, and friendships across the galaxy. Sometimes, leaders overlooked the importance of honesty in young minds. Sometimes, the most unexpected guest could spark change. As the night drew on, the CEO decided to test Lyra further, not with challenges, but with conversation. She asked, "If you could bring something from your home to share with all these guests, what would it be?" Lyra thought carefully. "I think I would bring my home fruit, the sola berry. It is small, blue, and glows faintly at night. On Zarathas, we use it to celebrate when the harvest is good. It makes people smile even when times are hard." Alara nodded approvingly. "A gift that brings joy, that is very human and very alien at the same time. I like it." Lyra's small chest swelled with pride. No one had ever shown interest in her planet's traditions before. She realized that being honest and speaking plainly had value. People listened. People cared. And in that moment, she felt more confident than she ever had in her life. Later, as the banquet began to wind down, Lyra sat quietly at her table, savoring the last few bites of her favorite dishes. She looked around at the glowing hall, the floating lights, and the many beings she had spoken with. Though she had come simply for the food, she now understood something far more important. Honesty, curiosity, and a willingness to connect could open doors no one could imagine. Alara approached her one last time that evening. "Lyra," she said, "you've made this night memorable. Not just for yourself, but for all of us. Sometimes the smallest guest can teach the biggest lesson." Lyra looked up, a shy but bright smile spreading across her face. "I didn't mean to teach anything. I just wanted to eat." Alara laughed softly. "And that is exactly why you succeeded. Never underestimate the power of honesty and simple joy." The young alien girl's eyes twinkled. She had come for food, yes. But she had found something else entirely. A connection, acceptance, and the knowledge that being true to herself was enough. And as the stars outside the hall glittered, Lyra realized that this banquet was not the end of her journey. It was only the beginning. The next day, the grand banquet hall had quieted from its earlier buzz, though the afterglow of excitement lingered. For most dignitaries, the evening had been a celebration, a showcase of their cultures and cuisines. For Lyra, it had been something entirely different, a revelation. She had discovered that honesty and curiosity could open doors and that small gestures, like tasting food with sincere interest, could make an impression that even adults respected. Lyra had barely slept that night. She kept thinking about the glowing fruits, the sparkling pastries, and the floating platters. But more than anything, she kept thinking about the smiles she had seen on the faces of the banquet guests. They had listened to her, laughed with her, and even shared their own traditions. That simple experience had made her feel important. Alara Ven had not forgotten her either. The CEO spent the morning reviewing reports, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the small alien girl who had spoken so honestly the previous night. There was something unusual about Lyra, not just her honesty, but the way she observed and interacted with the world. Most beings, even adults, approached new experiences with caution or pretense. Lyra approached them with curiosity and wonder, and that was a rare combination. By midday, the hall had been arranged for another gathering. This time, a smaller demonstration of interplanetary innovations and cultural exchanges. Scientists, artists, chefs, and engineers from multiple planets had been invited to showcase their work. Lyra, of course, had been allowed to stay, under Alara's careful supervision. As the event began, Lyra wandered among the tables, her eyes wide with fascination. She paused at one table displaying floating utensils designed to stir and serve food autonomously. At another, a scientist demonstrated a liquid that changed color and flavor according to temperature. Lyra leaned close, asking questions in her gentle, honest way. Every guest she approached responded with patience and enthusiasm, charmed by her eagerness and respect. Then something unexpected happened. A small incident at the central table caught everyone's attention. A hovering tray of herbs and spices, part of a culinary demonstration, began to wobble. It drifted toward the edge of the table, threatening to topple and spill its contents. Without thinking, Lyra reached out. Her hand hovered just above the tray, and to the astonishment of the guests, the herbs and spices seemed to respond to her presence. Slowly, as if guided by an invisible hand, they floated back onto the center of the tray, balanced perfectly. Gasps filled the hall. Scientists and chefs stared at her in disbelief. Some quickly pulled out small devices to measure magnetic fields or gravity, but nothing in the instruments explained what had just happened. Lyra herself blinked, unsure if she had done it on purpose. She had only moved her hands instinctively, wishing to prevent a mess. Alara stepped forward, her face a mixture of surprise and admiration. "Lyra," she said softly, "what was that?" I don't know," Lyra admitted. "I just wanted to stop it from falling." She paused, then added shyly, "I've done this a little before with small things at home, but I didn't know it would work here." A murmur spread among the guests. The little alien girl was not only curious and honest, she had a talent no one could explain. And while it wasn't dangerous or destructive, it was clearly something extraordinary. One of the Tyranthian diplomats, Kale, stepped forward. "On our planet, such abilities are rare and usually trained for years," he said. Yet this child does it naturally. Remarkable. Lyra shrugged, feeling both proud and nervous. She had never considered herself remarkable, she had simply been herself. But now the eyes of many beings from different worlds were on her, filled with curiosity, admiration, and something like awe. Alara, sensing an opportunity, knelt down to Lyra's level. "Lyra, would you like to try something?" she asked. "Something that could help people from different planets understand each other better." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Yes," she said eagerly. Alara gestured to a nearby table filled with ingredients from across the galaxy, spices, fruits, grains, and liquids that changed color with temperature. "I want you to create a small dish using your talent," Alara explained. "Something that combines flavors from multiple worlds, something everyone here can share." Lyra nodded solemnly. She concentrated, her small hands hovering over the ingredients. Slowly, the elements began to float, moving as if guided by her thoughts. Spices swirled into tiny vortices, liquids mixed and shimmered, and fruits gently floated together. The guests watched in awe, whispering among themselves. Finally, Lyra guided the ingredients to a simple plate. On it lay a small, glowing dessert, a combination of flavors and colors from multiple planets. She stepped back, her hands trembling slightly from excitement and nervousness. Alara leaned closer and tasted it first. Her eyes widened. "Incredible," she said. "It is familiar and new at the same time. Each bite tells a story of different worlds, yet it feels unified." One by one, other guests tried it. Smiles spread across faces, and murmurs of approval filled the hall. The floating dessert, simple as it was, had brought joy and curiosity together. It was a testament to creativity, honesty, and a willingness to connect. Lyra felt a warm glow of pride. She had only wanted to prevent the herbs from falling, yet her small, honest effort had turned into something amazing and meaningful. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that her curiosity and talent could actually make a difference. As the event continued, Alara introduced Lyra to other innovators and creators. A chef from Urindor demonstrated a fruit that sang when sliced. A scientist from Morley's showed a device that could mimic flavors from any planet. Lyra tried each invention with open eyes and an open heart, giving honest feedback that impressed the adults. Her thoughts were simple yet insightful. She didn't overcomplicate things. She observed, felt, and shared her honest impressions. By the afternoon, it was clear that Lyra had become the center of attention, not because she sought it, but because her honesty, curiosity, and unique talent had drawn it naturally. Even Alara, who was used to commanding rooms and capturing attention, found herself quietly observing the young alien, fascinated by the impact of her presence. Lyra, meanwhile, felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. She had never imagined that being herself could lead to such recognition. On Zarathas, children were expected to follow rules and stay out of the spotlight. But here, being honest, curious, and kind had opened doors she had never dreamed of. Kale approached her again, smiling. "You have a rare gift, Lyra," he said, "and you use it with care and honesty. That is a combination few possess." Lyra tilted her head. I don't think I'm special. I just do what feels right." "That is what makes you special," Kale said simply. "Not seeking attention, not trying to impress, just being true to yourself." Alara nodded in agreement. "Yes, Lyra, you remind us all why honesty and curiosity are important. You show us that even a small being can create change, simply by being themselves." As the day drew to a close, Lyra felt a sense of fulfillment she had never known. She had come for free food, yes, but she was leaving with something far greater. The knowledge that her honesty and curiosity could inspire others, and that her unique talent could bring joy, unity, and understanding across worlds. That evening, as the banquet hall emptied and the last lights dimmed, Alara approached Lyra one final time. "You've done more than I ever expected," she said. "You've reminded everyone here of the power of curiosity, honesty, and a willingness to share. And that is something very human and very important, even for someone who is not human." Lyra smiled softly. "I just wanted to help and taste food," she said. "And that," Alara replied with a gentle laugh, "was enough to make magic happen." The small alien girl left the hall that evening with her heart light and her mind racing. She had discovered that being herself, honest, curious, and kind, could touch the hearts of others in ways she had never imagined. She had no desire for fame or recognition. She only wanted to explore, taste, and understand. Yet in doing so, she had already started to make a difference in the galaxy. And as she looked up at the stars that night, shimmering like the floating fruits she had touched that day, Lyra realized something profound. Even the smallest guest, with no power or title, could inspire wonder and unity simply by being themselves. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt that the galaxy was not so vast and lonely. It was full of friends, opportunities, and shared experiences waiting to be discovered. And she could not wait to see what the next day would bring. The next morning, the grand banquet hall of the Interstellar Conference buzzed with activity once more. This time, the air was not just filled with aromas and colorful dishes, it was filled with ideas. Aliens and humans alike moved between demonstration tables, sharing inventions, recipes, and art. The previous night's banquet had left an impression, but today promised something even more exciting: collaboration. For Lyra, the small alien girl who had once snuck in for free food, this day felt different. She walked alongside CEO Alara Venn, her steps light and eager. Alara had invited her to witness the planning of a new initiative, something that could change the way planets interacted. "Are you ready for this?" Alara asked, glancing down at Lyra. I think so," Lyra said, her violet eyes sparkling. "But what is it?" Alara smiled. "It's an idea I've been thinking about for a long time, a galactic cultural exchange program. The goal is simple: to connect humans and aliens through creativity, food, stories, and invention, and I want you to help me design it." Lyra blinked. "Me, but I'm small and I'm just a guest." "You are exactly who I need," Alara said. "You see things honestly, without prejudice. You're curious, kind, and open. That is more valuable than experience or wealth." Lyra's small chest swelled with pride. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. She had come for food, and now she was being asked to help unite worlds. It felt impossible, yet thrilling. They entered a large planning room where holographic displays floated above tables. Charts showed the locations of planets, trade routes, and cultural hubs. Alara guided Lyra to a table filled with miniature models of different planets and artifacts from across the galaxy. "Look," Alara said, pointing to a glowing orb. "This is Urindor. They have incredible fruit, some that can sing when cut. If we combine that with culinary knowledge from Tyranthia, we can create experiences that no single planet could produce alone." Lyra leaned closer, her curiosity piqued. We could make food that tells stories?" she asked. "Yes," Alara said. "Food, art, inventions, all ways to connect. But it must be honest, simple, and inclusive. That is where you come in. You understand what it feels like to see something new, to be amazed by flavors or colors. You can help guide this program so it is meaningful for everyone." Lyra's mind raced with ideas. "We could have workshops," she said excitedly, "where humans and aliens cook together and exchange ingredients and tell stories while tasting." Alara laughed softly, delighted by the enthusiasm. "Exactly, and we can extend it beyond food. Music, art, technology, any way to share culture safely and joyfully. We want people to understand and enjoy each other, just like you did at the banquet." Lyra nodded eagerly. "Yes, and everyone can participate, not just leaders, kids, adults, everyone." Alara smiled. "You understand perfectly. Sometimes adults forget that the simplest approach works best. You remind us why curiosity and honesty matter." The two of them spent hours planning. Lyra moved miniature models of planets, imagining what each could contribute. She suggested areas for cooking, music, and storytelling. She even thought about a floating garden where ingredients from all planets could be grown together, allowing visitors to taste them fresh. By late afternoon, the program had taken shape. They decided on a series of exchange events, beginning with small banquets like the one Lyra had attended, and eventually expanding to workshops, art exhibits, and collaborative inventions. The core idea was connection through creativity, led by honest curiosity rather than politics or profit. Alara looked at Lyra with admiration. "You know," she said, "your presence changes everything. People trust you. They listen to you. You remind them that even small beings can make a difference." Lyra smiled, feeling shy but proud. "I just like seeing people happy," she admitted, "and tasting new foods. And that," Alara said, "is the perfect combination for creating joy and unity." The first test of the program came sooner than expected. That evening, a smaller banquet was held, specifically designed as a pilot for the exchange program. Lyra was given the role of junior ambassador, guiding guests in tasting new foods, sharing traditions from her home planet, and observing interactions. As the banquet began, Lyra moved among the tables with grace and enthusiasm. She introduced Zarathian fruits to Tyranthian chefs, explained Zarathian harvest celebrations to human children, and even helped a pair of alien inventors create a tiny floating dessert using her levitation ability. Guests were amazed. The food wasn't just delicious, it told a story. Each bite carried flavors from multiple planets, blending cultures in a way that sparked curiosity and wonder. Lyra's honesty and guidance ensured that every guest understood the origins and meaning behind what they were tasting. At one point, a human chef from Earth approached Lyra. "You have a special way of explaining things," he said. "Even adults understand better when you talk about flavors and culture. You're inspiring." Lyra blushed. "I just like sharing what I see and taste," the chef smiled. "And that is exactly why you are helping people connect." Meanwhile, Alara watched from the side, noting the interactions. The experiment was working. The honesty, curiosity, and talent of one small alien girl were bringing humans and aliens closer together. There was laughter, joy, and even a few moments of surprise as flavors and inventions combined in unexpected ways. By the end of the evening, the banquet had achieved more than Alara could have imagined. Guests exchanged contacts, discussed collaborative projects, and even began planning joint cultural events for the following months. And at the center of it all was Lyra, the girl who had once simply wanted free food. As the hall quieted, Alara knelt beside Lyra. "Do you see now?" she asked softly. "Your curiosity, honesty, and courage have started something incredible. You've helped people understand each other in ways that words alone cannot." Lyra nodded slowly, a soft smile spreading across her face. I just wanted to taste food," she said. "I didn't know it could do all this." "And that," Alara said gently, "is the power of being yourself. Never forget that even small actions can inspire change. You are proof." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She had started this journey for simple reasons, but she was now part of something much bigger. She had learned that curiosity, honesty, and kindness were not weaknesses. They were strengths that could connect worlds. That night, as she lay in her small quarters, Lyra thought about the banquet and the day's events. She remembered the glowing fruits, the floating spices, the collaborative dishes, and the laughter of beings from countless planets. She realized that the galaxy was not as lonely as she had once feared. There were friends, opportunities, and adventures waiting, if she remained honest, curious, and willing to share. And somewhere deep inside, she made a quiet promise. She would continue to explore, taste, and learn. She would help connect people, share joy, and inspire understanding, one honest action at a time. The galaxy had many wonders, but Lyra understood now that the greatest wonder was connection. And she had just begun to discover how much impact one small alien girl could make. Months had passed since the first banquet where Lyra, the small alien girl from Zarathis, had boldly admitted she was just here for the free food. In that time, what had started as a simple curiosity had grown into something extraordinary. Under the guidance of CEO Alara Venn, the pilot program for a galactic cultural exchange had expanded into a network of events, workshops, and collaborations that connected humans and aliens across the stars. Lyra had become the youngest ambassador of the program, a role she had taken with a mix of excitement and humility. She traveled between planets, introducing new foods, sharing stories, and demonstrating her unusual talent. The gentle levitation of small objects, which she now used to create floating dishes, art, and educational displays. Today was one of the program's largest events yet, a grand banquet hosted on Venn Station, the CEO's flagship space hub. The hall was filled with beings from dozens of worlds, all eager to experience the unique fusion of flavors, traditions, and creativity that the exchange program had inspired. Lights shimmered off crystal walls, robotic servers glided silently, and tables were adorned with ingredients from every corner of the galaxy. Lyra, standing on a small platform in the center of the hall, took a deep breath. She had been asked to welcome the guests and introduce a new feature, a floating garden where ingredients from multiple planets would grow together, combining flavors and textures in ways no one had imagined. "Good evening, everyone," she said in her clear, soft voice, amplified by gentle sound transmitters. "Welcome to the Galactic Exchange Banquet. I am Lyra from Zarathis, and I am honored to share this evening with all of you." The crowd erupted in polite applause. Lyra's confidence had grown since the first banquet. She no longer felt nervous in front of such an audience. She had learned that honesty, curiosity, and kindness carried their own kind of strength. She gestured toward the floating garden. Tiny plants hovered in midair, their roots anchored to glowing spheres. Fruits, herbs, and vegetables from planets near and far spun slowly, releasing their scents and colors into the air. These plants, Lyra explained, come from many worlds. Tonight you will taste them, smell them, and see how they can inspire creativity. But more importantly, you will meet the people behind them, the humans and aliens who shared their knowledge, their time, and their hearts to make this garden possible. Guests leaned in, enchanted by the floating greenery. Some touched the fruits lightly, careful not to disturb them, while others whispered to companions about the strange and beautiful flavors they imagined. Lyra walked among the tables, helping guests understand the stories behind each plant. A chef from Urindor approached her. "Lyra," he said, "you've transformed the way people experience food. Your ideas, your guidance, it's extraordinary." Lyra smiled shyly. "I just like sharing what I see and taste," she said, "and seeing people enjoy it makes me happy." Alara, observing from the side, felt a surge of pride. The small alien girl who had sneaked in for free food months ago was now a central figure in an initiative connecting worlds. She had reminded everyone, even seasoned leaders and inventors, that honesty, curiosity, and a willingness to learn were more powerful than titles or wealth. As the evening progressed, Lyra demonstrated her talent once more. Using her ability to levitate small objects, she guided herbs, spices, and tiny fruits across the tables, creating miniature floating dishes for each guest. Children from multiple planets laughed in delight as their desserts hovered before them, swirling gently in midair before settling softly onto their plates. Adults marveled, discussing how the display not only brought joy but also symbolized cooperation and unity. During a quieter moment, a young human girl approached Lyra. "I've never tasted anything like this," she said, eyes wide. "How do you know which flavors go together?" Lyra knelt down to her level. "I just try things and see how they feel together," she explained. "Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but the fun is in exploring. And when you're honest about what you like and don't like, everyone learns something new." The girl nodded thoughtfully. "I want to explore like that too." "You can," Lyra said warmly. "Everyone can." Later, Alara called Lyra aside. "You've inspired more than just the guests," she said. "Your honesty and creativity have motivated the chefs, inventors, and organizers to think differently. They're excited to collaborate because of you. You remind everyone why this program exists, to connect, to share, and to learn from one another." Lyra looked around the hall, taking in the floating gardens, the lively conversations, and the laughter that echoed from corner to corner. It was overwhelming in the best way. "I didn't expect it to be like this," she admitted. "I only wanted to taste food. And that," Alara said with a soft laugh, "was exactly the beginning we needed. Sometimes the smallest desire can create the biggest change." As the evening drew to a close, the final event began. A shared meal from all participating planets, served in a circular arrangement that encouraged guests to move around, taste, and interact. Lyra guided visitors, explaining the origins of ingredients, teaching small phrases in alien languages, and even encouraging gentle games where flavors were guessed by scent and touch. At one point, a Tyranthian diplomat whispered to Alara, "This young girl, she is remarkable. She has brought humility, curiosity, and joy to all of us. We've attended countless galactic events, yet I've never seen such unity." Alara nodded. "Yes, and it all started because she was honest about wanting free food." Lyra, standing near the center of the hall, felt a quiet satisfaction. She realized that the impact of honesty and curiosity was far greater than she had imagined. By simply being herself, observant, honest, and eager to learn, she had helped humans and aliens discover new ways to connect. As the banquet ended and guests began to leave, exchanging contact details and promising future collaborations, Lyra paused to look at Alara. "Do you think this will continue?" she asked softly. Alara smiled. "Yes, because it isn't just about a single banquet or a single event. It's about the spirit of curiosity, honesty, and creativity. As long as people remember that, the program will grow, and the connections we've built tonight will spread across the galaxy." Lyra nodded. She felt a sense of purpose she had never known before. She had started her journey with a simple desire, food. But now she had a mission, to share, to inspire, and to connect beings from all worlds through the simple joy of curiosity and honesty. Later, alone in her quarters, Lyra sat by a small window overlooking the stars. The lights of Ven Station glittered like countless tiny lanterns, and beyond them, entire planets spun silently in the void. She thought about the people she had met, the flavors she had tasted, and the laughter she had shared. And she knew that this was only the beginning. She remembered her first words at the banquet. "I'm just here for the free food." It seemed almost impossible that those words had led to such a journey. Yet now she understood. Honesty could open doors, curiosity could inspire, and kindness could unite worlds. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Alara entered, carrying a small tray with one of Lyra's favorite dishes, a glowing Zarathian fruit delicately arranged with tiny edible flowers from multiple planets. "I thought you might like this," Alara said. "To celebrate everything you've helped create." Lyra's eyes widened. "Thank you," she said softly. She picked up a small piece and tasted it. The flavors danced across her tongue, each bite reminding her of distant planets, new friends, and the joy of shared experiences. Alara smiled, watching the small alien girl enjoy the meal. "You've done more than you know, Lyra. You've reminded everyone here why we share food, stories, and ideas, not for prestige, not for profit, but for understanding, joy, and connection." Lyra nodded, a quiet determination settling in her heart. "I want to keep doing this," she said. "I want to help everyone explore and understand each other, just like tonight." "And you will," Alara said confidently. "Because the greatest gift is not the food, the technology, or the traditions. It's the spirit behind them. And you carry that spirit naturally." As the night ended and the hall emptied, Lyra stepped outside onto the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before her, and she felt the vastness of the galaxy in a new way. It was not empty. It was full of friends, opportunities, and adventures waiting to be discovered. And she smiled, remembering the journey that had started with a single, honest statement. "I'm just here for the free food." Now she realized that simple truth had led to something far greater. A legacy of connection, curiosity, and unity that would spread across the galaxy for years to come. Lyra turned back toward the station, ready to continue her work, her heart filled with joy and her spirit brighter than the stars themselves. The galaxy was no longer a distant, lonely place. It was a canvas of endless possibilities, and she was ready to explore every corner of it.